past. It's still honest, unknown, a better place. Narrow your breath from every guess. I've drawn my birthplace. I don't need a friend. I won't let it end again. Be at my best, and I fall obsessed in all its memory. And oh, vow to our death, to be undressed, to love and birth our reverie. I don't want a friend. I won't let it in again. I don't need a friend. I won't let it here at my best. It's all I rest since I found a better place.
Good morning, baby. It's the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. And I'm Doug Rice. Oh, come on, horns. Come on. Give me more. Good morning. Doug Rice, that's me. Don't drop your phones. 7 a.m. Did you like the intro? I did. I thought it was eclectically different. I chose different intro music, akin to the times that we are in, Negroes, and we are in some times. Oh, man! It's it's fulfillment. I mean, it's prophetic fulfillment right at their feet, and it's near complete. Now, folks, look, they know. Let me tell you why they know they're pouring 300,000 into the effort. They know. They know this is it. I'm looking. Are you looking? I'm looking. They're amassing. Let me explain what I'm saying. Okay? You guys know the size of Gaza. You guys know, right? And you know the size of Ukraine. Well, 300,000 soldiers is more than were mobilized by Russia to invade the entire country of Ukraine, containing 40 million Ukrainians. And the state of Israel, at this moment, right now, as we speak, is prepping a world for the largest invasion on the smallest piece of property in the history of humanity. And I'm going to tell you something, folks, because I just feel it in my bones. I don't think they should go in. I don't. I think they should hold back. I think they've done enough damage. I'm not on either side. Palestinians turned their back upon Negroes and allowed us to be sold into slavery, just like every other nation. They don't like us, so I don't want you to get the wrong impression. I am not taking Palestinian sides. Are you kidding me? I have seen through the lies. There is no friendly nation that can sit upon any station. They've all conspired against Negroes. And so I see this is how it goes. So let's not fool ourselves. Let's not think that this is somehow an inappropriate measure. It is not an inappropriate measure what is happening. I wrote about it a little bit ago in a longer post, just so you know. You can look at it on my social media pages. And it talks about how the Creator left long ago and arrived back. Perhaps what's happening may be happening in stages. You know, don't play. Let's go. All right, how you doing this morning? 7:05 in the morning. It's 10/12/2023. My name is Doug Rice. Thanks for tuning in to me. It's the Doug Rice Show. I started long ago, about, January 6th, 2021. That's the day that I came completely undone. I set it off. That's right, folks. I think I lost my mind momentarily as I watched White Behind attack premeditarily their own capital. And let me tell you okay, look, you guys want to know where I tipped and toed. You guys want to know where it went all the way. Let me tell you where it went good for me, okay? I'm going to tell you, because you need to know. It's when I saw them construct a fucking gallows. And when I heard these maleficent individuals talking about hang Mike Pence, I knew my mind had tipped over the fence. At that point, I was beyond the ability to return, and I've been doing this ever since. So what have I learned? Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I've learned. I've learned quite a lot as I do this thing. I read books. No, I don't sing. Just joking. So, yeah, folks, what we do is we impart information, we impart knowledge. I somehow segued into this evolutionary ability to do this. And you got to find a niche, right? You got to scratch that itch, right? Right? You know, okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to read to you. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to read. I'm going to impart the wisdom, the knowledge, the stuff that I see. And eat the meat, spit out the bone. Because you already know you're on your own. I'm just here to help you worship the throne. All right, so here's what we got today. Negroes have a chance now. All right, now you listen to me carefully, Negroes. You have a chance. The nations are distracted, okay? Their mental is impacted, all right? And while all of this occurs, we can help defragment ourselves. Because as Tom Burrell puts it, we are brainwashed. Yes, we are. As a nation, as Negroes, as Hebrews, we have been brainwashed with the myth of Negro inferiority. That's right, I changed black to Negro. Get over it. And that's what we're going to review today, folks. Now, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to share, to hit the notification bell. I mean, do all of those things, please. But understand that I don't do this for numbers, because I know that what I say is not for the masses. This is not for the great ignorant asses. This is for folks that have discernment. This is the folks that want to get a little learnment. So what I do here in the Doug Rice Show every day at 7 a.m., I am here as long as I can keep the lights on. And Sunday at noon, I'll be there as well. But today, we have a story to tell. You read in the description, they're distracted. They're on something, whatever. They'll work it out. Hey, let them be them. Hey, those guys, they've been doing this a while. I'm sure it'll all shake out in the prophetic end. But what we can do is we can remove the brainwashing that has this myth imposed upon Negroes that they are somehow inferior, because that is what this fight is about in the interior of the Middle East, to say the least. These folks are just plain beasts. They think that they are superior, that they not only that, they claim blacks as inferior. And so they are much a part of the brainwashing that we suffer. And we're going to check out this book and see what happens. All right, Brainwashed. Tom Burrell. Now, you can get your own copy of this. It's on Amazon, and it's a fairly decent read. As you can see, written in 2010. And we've got a lot of To My Wife, Madeline, Gentle Force. Isn't he lucky? I'm just joking. My wife is a force to be reckoned with. Introduction, contents. So here we are. The scorch at the bottom of the melting pot. Wow. That's beyond the melting pot. That's beyond the bottom. That's the scorch. Chapter 2, relationship wrecks. Why can't we form strong families? Not only is this an insight into our issues as Negroes within the confines of this place, it also lends to every reason we need to set a path to leaving and prepare for our second exodus, which is nearly upon us all. This is true. Chapter 3, studs and sluts. Why do we conform to black sexual stereotypes? Why indeed? Chapter 4, uglified. Why are black and beautiful still contradictions? Chapter 5, homicide. Did you think of this yourself? Very nice. Why do we keep killing each other? That's going to be an interesting chapter. Chapter 6, slow suicide. Why do we neglect body, mind, and spirit? Chapter 7. Buy now, pay later. Why can't we stop shopping? Why do we stay broke? It's a condition. It is a condition. It's a part of the curse. But let's go. Chapter 8, D's will do. Why do we expect so little of each other and ourselves? Chapter 9, bread to be led. Why do we so willingly give up control of our lives? Dear God. Chapter 10, disunity. Why can't we stick together? Chapter 11, neo-coons. Why is the joke always on us? Chapter 12, yes, we must, healing from the inside out. And while we're on chapter 12, let me shout, the only healing is from outside, not within. That's the only way we can shake off this sin. All right, the one good thing I like about this book and this kind of production is that I can click back and forth. Let's start with the introduction. All right, folks, good morning. Doug Rice here. 7:12 in the morning. I read as long as I'm able to read. I try to take the chapter or 3, but we'll see how this goes. Just stick with me. Introduction, Brainwashed. Challenging the myth Black inferiority. John Burrell. All right. Introduction. We've been misled. We've been had. I like that. You've been misled. I thought us. You've been misled. You've been had. You've been took. I remember Malcolm said that. Had everybody shook. We are strong, survivors of the Middle Passage, the whip, and the chains. We've survived centuries of terror, humiliation, vilification, and deprivation. We are smart. Even when our literacy was illegal, we learned quickly, invented, discovered, built, taught, and excelled against all odds. We are creative, making a way out of no way, and constantly birthing and rebirthing American art and culture. So then why, after all this time, when calculating the achievement of the American dream, are we still ranked at the bottom of almost every good list and at the top of the bad lists? Why, despite our apparent strength, intelligence, and resourcefulness, do we continue to lag behind and languish in so many aspects of American life? The answer is intrinsically linked to the hundreds of years blacks have lived with white guilt and black shame. It lurks just beneath the surface of the American consciousness like a cancer that can't be healed because it can't be discussed openly and honestly. 45 years in the advertising industry has given me personal and professional insight into the power of propaganda, positive and negative, and the use of words and images to influence, change, and even transform people's lives. The knowledge and insights I've gained have inspired me to provoke an honest discussion in the hope that the healing process can finally begin. And let me pause for the cause, because I will always say, and never detract, never back from, the only way the healing process can begin and end is us out of here. This place, from its very foundation, was built in the antithesis to Negroes. As it built itself up, it dug itself into the ground, reinforcing itself, stabilizing itself clearly in opposition to anything associated with Negro elevation. And so I say once again, I'll never, ever, ever feel that healing can begin in this goddamned racist nation. Back to it. I was born and raised in the South Side of Chicago. It was at the beginning of the New Deal, the second coming of black dependency. Throughout my community, we Negroes were indoctrinated with the idea that we were unable to take care of ourselves. And we needed helping handouts from Mr. Charlie. Now, y'all don't remember these days. Mr. Charlie, we used to call him. I do. I remember them days through my family. Interesting. In the form of government programs, including public assistance, food stamps, any other gifts the government bestowed. This unquestioned dependency, what psychologists call learned helplessness, Negroes, pay attention, was, I believe, one of the many reinforcements of a deep-seated race-based inferiority. The message was clear, consistent, ubiquitous, and loud. It was subtly broadcast by the white mass media and bluntly and repeatedly echoed by its black recipients. Nigga ain't shit. It was, for the most part, an advertising pitch that not much different from the ones used to sell beer, laundry detergent, or life insurance. The two main ingredients of this campaign created a toxic blend of white supremacy and black inferiority. Sold! In 1971, I and my partner, Emmett McBain, launched what would become Burrell Advertising, a full-service advertising agency specializing in promoting products and services to the then largely ignored African-American consumer. He's not playing. They're not paying attention to us. You look how they advertise to us, and you look how they advertise to themselves. Burrell Advertising became an industry leader because of its positive, realistic, and compelling depictions of Black life and culture, particularly in the medium of television. We were keenly aware of the power of culturally relevant language and images to influence perceptions and attitudes toward my clients' products and services. In other words, we created a disseminated positive propaganda. Many years later, while minding my own business, literally as chairman and chief executive officer at Burrell Communications, I coined the phrase, "Black people are not dark-skinned white people." What? Say it again. Black people are not dark-skinned white people. I bet he said it like that too, right? Okay. It was a concise summation of the basis of my business that Black Americans, because of our heritage and history, have a unique culture that could best be reached through strategies, words, and images, subtly and overtly related to those historical and cultural factors. All ad agencies employ creativity, writing, art, photography, and music to capture the public's most much divided attention. However, the most important part of what we do is study people, why they do what they do, and why they buy what they buy. This is right up my alley. Understanding what motivates people is a crucial part of my profession, mine as well. But being a Black man, I was compelled to understand the ways Blacks are viewed in this country, the way many of us unconsciously view ourselves. Connecting the Black dots on a larger level early on, from slavery and Jim Crow segregation to commercial and social propaganda, became my passion. Burrell Communications research of the 70s and 80s showed that African Americans have distinct psychosocial needs, desires, fears, hopes, and aspirations, all born of the circumstances arising from our experience as chattel slaves in America. We discovered, for example, that Black preference for high-end status brands was driven by the need to compensate for feelings of low self-esteem. Dear God, listen to that factoid. Black preference for high-end status brands was driven by the need to compensate for feelings of low self-esteem. Well, well, well. And so we can assume that that's the reason we have so much bling bling, right? Our pension for a lopsided savings ratio grew out of a need for immediate gratification based on a chilling pessimism about an uncertain future. All of us suffer from that. We over-indexed spending disproportionate amounts in every product category related to cleanliness, from feminine douches and scented laundry detergents to car deodorizers and household disinfectants, primarily to compensate for being hysterically stereotyped as dirty. I can tell you beyond doubt, Negroes are some of the cleanest individuals on the planet. And what I'll say about our counterparts will not be repeated on this show. You know. The genesis of all these attitudes can be traced to American slavery. That is right. Let me say that again. The genesis, the beginnings of all these attitudes that they've impressed upon our Negro selves can be traced to American slavery. It was in America, in the land of the free, that Africans were chained and branded, both physically and psychologically, as subhuman beasts of burden. It was here that we were first indoctrinated with the idea that we were in fact not humans at all, but property. I determined to gain a clearer picture of the various ways that our painful history in America manifests itself in present-day attitudes and behaviors. Yes, there were intergenerational and historic factors determining African-American purchasing patterns, but might there be similar factors influencing our daily lives, our relationships, our institutions. In 2004, I sold the company and left the advertising business, but not completely. I found myself consumed by what I had learned and applied from my years of real-life African-American cultural anthropology. How could I utilize what we knew, that we had been branded physically and mentally from the beginning, to enable further exploitation? How had that branding been perpetrated even after our physical chains were broken with the end of legal slavery? How were our intensely torturous enslavement indoctrination transformed into the powerful, pernicious, all-pervasive, mass media-driven brainwashing that still goes on today? As a marketing professional who respects and admires brilliantly conceived and deftly executed propaganda, I eventually recognized that one of the greatest propaganda campaigns of all times was the masterful marketing of the myth of black inferiority to justify slavery within a democracy. Ingenious. I also became fascinated by the timeline of this perverse but brilliant campaign. The brainiac of his day, Thomas Jefferson, propagandist extraordinaire, chief strategist, and creative director, along with other Whig power brokers, sold the idea of white supremacy to the masses, all the masses. They conspired to make this out-and-out barbarity America's first big brand. The early American ruling class used every available tool: religion, law, politics, art, literature, even the nascent field of science, as tools of their sales, promotion, and PR strategy. The goal was to rationalize and reconcile the development of a single society with two outrageously contradictory parts. One built on the concept of human freedom, the other built on a vicious, governmentally sanctioned destruction of human freedom, all with the same history-making quill pen. Think about it. America had grappled with the moral dilemma of slavery ever since the first Africans landed in Jamestown in 1619. The founding fathers found themselves at a serious moral crossroads. They desperately needed a way to justify the gaping divide between their God-fearing, freedom-loving rhetoric and the nation's increasing addiction to cheap slave labor. The solution? An effective marketing campaign created not only to force the institution of slavery to fit within the budding democracy, but one aimed at convincing both master and slave that blacks had always been and would forever be mentally, physically, spiritually, and culturally inferior. On a personal level, I'm revolted. Yet, as a marketing man, I find it to be an audacious, ingenious strategy. It's as though the original colonial elite hired a PR agency to sell the concept that Africans were innately inferior, and it was indeed completely justifiable to treat them as subhuman beasts. The last several centuries still haunt us and hinder our advancement and achievement. It has separated successful blacks from disposable blacks, those who simply refuse to act right and prosper. In our effort to prove our equality, we unconsciously chased the master's dream, adopted his values, moved into his neighborhoods, went to his schools, and danced to his tune. While in assimilation and survival mode, we had no time to consider the price we'd pay for leaving our communities and leaving behind so many who looked like us. In the 1960s and early 70s, we paid lip service to being black and proud, but the sudden conversion was not supported by the necessary psychological machinery to make the change permanent. Even today, we have woefully inadequate countermeasures, no permanent culture mechanisms to undo what a 400-year marketing campaign has achieved. Our insistence that we have broken free from the negative propaganda is wishful thinking. It takes much more than big afros, clenched fists, and danceable slogans to fight the centuries of unremitting exposure to twisted images and dehumanizing messages. While I was writing this book, something happened that a few of us in our wildest dreams ever imagined. A black man became president of the United States of America and did absolutely nothing for Negroes. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. Some may look at that and say, see, black Americans have overcome. As Dr. King predicted, we as a people, we've gotten to the promised land with no promises kept. I added that. In this day and age, imagery is power. Never before has the country had the image of a black man occupying the highest office in the land, delivering the State of the Union address, drafting and voting national policy, and disembarking from Air Force One with his black wife and daughter. From a marketing perspective, this is powerful, life-altering stuff. Yeah, it altered their life, didn't it? Yet anyone who looks beyond the glow of the moment will understand that neither we nor our situation will change overnight. A few of us have always succeeded somehow in spite of the failure of our American dream. Barack Obama, though intelligent, self-determined, and yes, not a small confluence of favorable circumstances, may have reached his promised land, but most black Americans are still wandering in the wilderness. The black inferiority / white superiority campaign has morphed exponentially in the new media age, a vastly different, highly technological phase of instantly communicating messages and images has changed the landscape forever. Now, a click of a mouse, a push of a button, or a finger slide across the side of a portable media device defines what's an opportunity and what's a lost cause, what's stagnant and what's progress, what's valuable and what's worthless. The so-called post-racial era, internalized black inferiority combined with this new media reality means the rules of engagement have changed dramatically. America's racial fatigue, coupled with the election of the nation's first African-American president and the illusions of the acceptable exceptions, present new challenges for the best of us and, most importantly, for the rest of us. The illusion of racial progress paves the way for a nationwide survival of the fittest mentality. It will be okay to uproot urbanites so suburbanites can reclaim valuable metropolitan areas. Gentrification is still unrelenting. Efforts to diversify the workplace and neighbors will become needless distractions. Affirmative action or any other race or class-based efforts will become moot issues of no value. After all, racism and prejudice died with the 2008 election. In a post-racial society with new media as its weapon, the brainwashing campaign now enters a phase that threatens to totally destroy our way of being. At a time when the global economy is a touchscreen away, when a fractured, dispirited nation is forced to once again dig deep and tap into its innovative roots to save itself, creative, time-tested black people can ill afford to sit on the sidelines, besieged by a dormant, invisible virus. No, more than ever, we have to come to terms with this devastating campaign. We've been programmed to deal with serious issues at a topical, epidermal level, instead of going into the deep tissue, to the root cause President Obama, utilizing savvy new media campaign to change hearts and win minds and votes, has opened the door for a counter-propaganda campaign, one that worked brilliantly, I might add. One that benefits not just black people, but whites as well. Now we are at a point in history when the opportunity for moving ahead has never been greater. We can seize this moment if only we take charge of our own destiny, our own reprogramming. If we pool our resources, we have the critical mass, the numbers, the voting power, the persuasive skills to enable us to combat the ills that derive from lingering racism, the same skills that have allowed us to survive if used less passively and more proactively can enable us to thrive. Hopeful young fella, isn't he? I've experienced race-based lack of self-esteem firsthand. I know that it was not based solely on low income or poor education. As upwardly mobile as I was, that sense of lack was right there, climbing every rung of the ladder of success right beside me. Over time, I've learned that the root of the problem wasn't was being done to me. It was I'd been brainwashed to feel that way about myself. We got it. We cannot cure the symptoms without acknowledging this disease. The pages examine the roots of why more than 140 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, so many of us still think like slaves. I've interviewed and incorporated the thoughts and experiences of many people throughout this book. Although I've changed names and ages of some of these interviewees to protect their identities, their honest input was invaluable in illustrating the modern-day impact of Black inferiority conditioning. In Brainwashed, we will question why we still think so little of ourselves, why our grandmothers still put their savings in a special offering plate to help pay for the pastor's new luxury automobile, why our children answer when called hoe and nigger, why our one-time civil rights, business, and political heroes succumb to crabbing and backstabbing, and why we all too often avoid critical thinking about any of this. This book examines our subconscious perpetuation of the myth of Black inferiority by asking these fundamental questions. Why can't we build strong families? Why do we perpetuate Black sexual stereotypes? Why are Black and beauty still contradictions? Why do we killing each other? Why are we killing ourselves? Why can't we stop shopping? Why do we expect so little of ourselves and each other? Why do we give up our power so willingly? And why can't we stick and stay together? Why is the joke always on us? Even at this unprecedented and powerful point in American history, friends, colleagues, and well-wishers still express their frustration with Black Americans' ever-worsening dependency on handouts, corporate sponsorships, and our kids' lack of respect for anyone and anything, especially themselves. They finally convinced me that my advertising-based discoveries about the brainwashing of my people and my ideas about how to finally reverse its effects could fill a book. Well, here it is. All right, well, that is, I got to tell you, a well done, deep opening. Dear God, boy, you got a big book there. Okay, not bad at all. What time is it, 7:37? So this is Doug Rice. We're going over Brainwashed, the challenging the myth of the Black inferiority complex set upon us. And of course, Tom Burrell, I believe, he does an amazing job in setting the stage for what will be, what I think is an amazing offering. Now, I can move forward to chapter 1. I am by no means even close to done. But if you don't mind, give me just a bit of time. I'm going to stand for a minute and turn on the fan. Done. And I'm just going to back to the reading. All right, so wanted to get a little cooler in here. On with the show. All right, so chapter 2. Just to give you a heads up. Chapter 1, excuse me, because we're done with the intro. Scorch at the bottom of the melting pot. Again, folks, this talks about through the eyes of a marketing guru, a marketing campaign director, a marketing campaign genius. I myself in the game have done marketing for quite a while. And I found this publication something that, I don't know, won't make you smile, but the first chapter talks about the scorch at the bottom of the melting pot. Now, look, I would love for anyone to support this effort by using the below edifices to do so. The preferred is Cash App. I mean, this is what I'm doing, and that's it. So if you want to support this show, just let me know. Send us some support, and we'll send you some PDFs in response as a reward. Thanks so much. Yep, I snuck a drink of water in. All right, folks, let's go. Chapter 1, the scorch at the bottom of the melting pot. The scorch. They talk about America being a melting pot. I'm on this. I get the reference. We are the scorch at the bottom of the melting pot. I mean, that means that we're right over the fire. Damn, that's a hell of a descriptive. The scorch at the bottom of the melting pot, Negroes. But in the propaganda against the Negro since emancipation in this land, we face one of the most stupendous efforts the world ever saw to discredit human beings. An effort involving universities, history, science, social life, and religion. W.E.B. Du Bois, an amazing writer in his time and long afterward. The marketing of black inferiority and white superiority as building blocks for the foundation of America is a chicken that has finally come home to roost. Now, we must ask ourselves, did the world's greatest brainwashing campaign work? Fast forward 233 years, yes, it worked brilliantly. That response, however, is incomplete. To discover the real answer, we must strip away layers of complex conditioning. Part of the black inferiority complex marketing campaign is to convince us that we can't handle the truth, that we're better off not knowing. Now, I wonder if that applies not just to the truth about us, but the truth about our oppressors and those who sold us. I'm wondering. It's an extremely patronizing message. We are capable enough and strong enough to handle the truth. More importantly, if we were to reverse the mindless perpetuation of the black inferiority or BI campaign, we must go to that painful place so that we can claim our peace. What he's telling you is the truth just doesn't set you free. The truth gives you peace. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering, does the truth truly give peace? Would the truth regarding the Middle East at least give a little peace? I've been considering that closely as he just brings this up, mostly thinking about what happens if they say out loud that Negroes are true Israel, and let's get real. I wonder what happens. Will that truth set you free? I wonder. All right, I'm sorry, I drift. Let's go back to the topic. I can't stop it. Let's examine the effects of the brainwashing campaign from a visual perspective. Imagine a video collage of contemporary black images delivered in a flashing, rapid 60-second sequence. Try not to think in terms of good and bad or right and wrong, but rather how familiar these scenes are. A sycophanted, heart-thumping, hip-hop beat pulsates while music video-style images explode on the screen with increasing tempo. A ghetto corner cordoned off with yellow police tape. On the 6 o'clock news, a mother wails over the body of a black boy felled by another black boy with a gun. Ivy League African Americans from Princeton, Harvard, and Yale running Fortune 500 companies. Prisons gorged with mostly dark-skinned inmates under 20. Forlorn teenage girls with swollen, pregnant bellies and scowling, pubescent boys sporting sagging pants zooming in and out of the picture. The 21st century American dream in black: Oprah Winfrey, Maya Angelou, Will Smith, Whoopi Goldberg, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, and other role models. Tattooed rappers, half-naked booty-shaking women, the hilarious, funny, but race-debasing comedians. Halle Berry seducing, Tiger Woods swinging, Michael Jordan flying, Beyonce singing, Flavor Flav bling blinging. I like this guy. Stressed out, hard-working, underpaid workers walking through an economically depressed neighborhood. Empty faces of neglected and abandoned elders, emaciated adults and obese children, malnourished in the land of plenty, all disproportionately suffering from junk food diets, diabetes, heart disease, HIV, AIDS, and other long ignored, untreated yet preventable diseases. An urban school resembling an outdated factory with armed guards. A teacher / warden in an overcrowded classroom attempts to instruct children to run the gambit from hyperactive to comatose. Photo gallery, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., and other Black History Month politicians and dignitaries. The montage slows to its finale with Hail to the Chief soaring in the background. Dominating the screen is a glorious photo of Barack Obama with Michelle Obama by his side. Images fade to black with the voice of the nation's 44th president repeating the now familiar phrase, "It's our time." Y'all remember all that? I remember all that. Now look, you know this book was written back in the day, right? But, we'll go over it anyway. The problem I'm having with the imaginations of Barack Obama saving this nation is just beyond any kind of creation. I mean, give me a break. This brother did absolutely nothing, and he's not a Negro. Let's just say it. Obama could play it being a Negro. He was good, too. He played ball and everything. He could sing Negro spiritual. You hear me? But he wasn't a Negro. He reminded them of a Negro. He played the part of a Negro, much like Kamala Harris plays the part of a Negro. She went to historically Black college, and she can do the swag, she can do the dance, but she is not a Negro. Two individuals they have in the high places, president and vice president, both they've claimed to be Negroes and are not. Does that sound familiar? Because it's all I've got. Next, exceptional exceptions. Of all the faces in my video collage, which ones were most likely influenced by the inferior black, superior white brainwashing campaign? All of them. I just can hear the critics. Whoa, hold up, Burrell. Sure, there's black negativity on a grand scale, but how can you say all blacks are brainwashed to feel inferior when you just noted inspirational examples of prideful, positive, and progressive African Americans excelling and accomplishing historic feats? As an African American who made his living understanding and utilizing the power of propaganda, I have unapologetically used the principles of psychology and emotional persuasion to promote products and agendas. I recognize marketing brilliance, and I'm cognizant of the country's addiction to feeding its illusion of being a free and equal society where anyone and everyone can succeed despite cultural and economic obstacles. Training the spotlight on well-deserving African-American achievers clouds the realities that they grapple with daily. The illusion that anyone can succeed, what I call the paradox of progress, solidifies the myth of a post-racial society. It weakens the impulse to understand or help those still scorched at the bottom of America's melting pot. It fuels the perception that all is well, and racism is dead, and suggests that those still wallowing in poverty made conscious choices to live in that stratum. If not many reasons, they'd simply follow Halle or Tiger or Oprah or even Tom Burrell's lead. They'd quit belly aching, grab those bootstraps and go to work. Hold on. It's even more convoluted. Blacks who have been conditioned to expect less from people who look like themselves automatically insert these high-profile Black achievers into the exceptional exceptions file. Many are positioned on pedestals with no demands of accountability toward those they left behind. After all, these people have achieved so much. They're different. They're exceptional. Some prominent Black achievers have actually opened their own Kool-Aid stand. They too consider themselves the exception, and in many instances, consciously or unconsciously, have begun to regard Blacks as lesser social status or achievement as inferior. Ironically, in many ways, the progress paradox is an impediment to substantive collective progress. Impediment, I believe, sorry. Consider recent FBI crime statistics, census figures associated with poverty, or the conclusions found in the book put out annually by the National Urban League, The State of Black America. They reveal the same ongoing depressing themes: social chaos, irresponsible spending, economic stagnation, and disproportionate death and incarceration rates. No matter what the category, Blacks statistically trail behind whites and other ethnicities, and in some areas, such as educational achievement and overall life expectancy, our numbers are actually getting worse. Regardless of our individual social, economic, or media success, it has not affected the Black bottom line. Therefore, though Black progress is more visible today than ever before, I maintain that the unwritten, audacious promotion of white superiority and Black inferiority was and still is the most effective and successful marketing propaganda campaign in the history of the world. African Americans, no matter how savvy, educated, or financially privileged, could not completely avoid the conditioning that resulted from increasingly sophisticated bombardment of subtle and not so subtle messages created to reinforce how different and inherently inferior Blacks are when compared to whites. In this perpetual state of otherness, there's no disputing our unequal status. Like Coca-Cola, the Black inferiority product has been modernized and updated with time. But don't be mistaken, the intent is to keep the original message firmly embedded in our psyches. White superiority was, is, and unless we block the negativity, will always be the real thing. Early indoctrination into my own inferiority fueled a determination to succeed. I remember coming to a conscious decision when I reached adulthood that rather than continue internalizing the hurt and humiliation, I'd just show them. I tried to deal with it in a variety of ways, starting with the idea of fooling the man, making all believe that I was something other than what they said. Some days I tried my best. Other days I just want to give in, accept the lesser status, and engage in cynical behavior. Ultimately, I chose the fake it till you make it approach, spoofing the public until I was financially secure enough to retire into a category of my own design. This line of thinking continued until I was more than 40 years old. Well after I'd established my marketing firm, Burrell Communications was touted for mastering the skills of positive commercial propaganda. Perhaps it was because of our commitment to understanding, mastering, and utilizing savvy techniques required to sell products and influence behavior that certain realities finally clarified and eventually inspired this journey. All I know for sure is at some point it dawned on me that I was not faking. I was indeed just as smart, just as brave, just as disciplined, and just as beautiful as what I thought I was pretending to be. The more I learned about the origin of my own issues, which had been festering with the legacy of chattel slavery, the more I was able to see the same wounds in others. It was then I realized that I, like most Americans, most Black Americans, had been brainwashed. Okay, so he sets a wonderful stage. We see in the first chapter, this is it's a propaganda campaign. He's framing this in the way of marketing to the masses to fool their foolish asses. And that's something. And it worked. It's working. Look, what happened as a result of Obama's election? We got Trump. What happened as a result of Trump's being president? We got racists anew. And before it's all over, you and I both know these folks are going to be through. Next. Okay, I'm sorry. Propaganda campaigns. Maybe I'm expressing a sense of atonement, or maybe it's just that I don't want to leave this planet without putting my life's skills to the ultimate test. I've decided to adopt a strategy similar to that of Edward Bernays, the nephew of the famous psychiatrist Sigmund Freud. Bernays was considered by many experts to be the first public relations professional. In fact, he takes credit for inventing the term. Bernays adapted some of Uncle Sigmund's revolutionary psychological studies to aid the government's World War II media offensive and to help manipulate the American masses for fun and profit. Bernays didn't call himself a propagandist. Back then, the Germans had already given the word the negative taint it still carries today. Instead, Bernays called himself a public relations expert. In a very real way, his first propaganda triumph was to change the image of propaganda itself. And in a way, this book follows Bernays' lead. The intent is to thoroughly dissect this white superiority, Black inferiority phenomenon. Demonstrate how it still retards our social, personal, and economic advancement, and then help Americans flip the script to neutralize the techniques. Unlike Bernays, I have no intention of shying away from the term propaganda. I say we use it. Take what was thrown at us, shuck it off, and replace it with positive propaganda. Propaganda is the outer layer of this brainwashing onion. After all, in the marketing world, propaganda is the first tool utilized to achieve a desired outcome. Brainwashing is the outcome, but propaganda got us here. And it's continued to use, keeps the inferior, superior mind game in play. Instead of using torture and other coercive techniques that stealthily media-savvy propagandists uses mass media and other forms of communication to change minds, mold ways of thinking. In the United States, the first society in theory governed by popular opinion, propaganda became a critical tool of the wealthy governing elite. For instance, the powerful words freedom and justice for all overshadowed the reality that both were denied to Black slaves. Yet those words as propaganda tools helped solidify the image of a burgeoning nation. There are many propaganda principles, but here are a few that I believe were of prime importance in the 18th century Black inferiority marketing strategy. These principles were employed throughout the colonial period of the late 1700s, Reconstruction in the late 1800s, the 20th century civil rights movement, and still survive in modern times. Pay attention. The big lie, the repeated and consistent articulation of a partial, distorted, or manufactured truth. In the colonial era, Black slaves are subhuman beasts. That's a big lie. That's something that's a propaganda tool. In the Reconstruction era, emancipated Blacks are still inferior to whites. Another lie. Blacks are angry, dangerous, unemployable, and addicted to welfare. Modern era. Low-income Blacks are innate failures, responsible for their own moral and economic decline. And then they appeal to fear, the purposeful effort to instill apprehension and panic. And they're going to parallel the same time frames. In the colonial era, appealing to the fear, they said changing the status of black slaves will threaten our livelihood and destroy our way of life. Well, I'll be damned. You mean the way of life that was built in the backs of black slaves? Come on now. How do they appeal to the fear in the Reconstruction era? Emancipating blacks will seek revenge and rape white women. Okay. How did they appeal to the fear in the Civil Rights era? Blacks are revolutionary communists. They're moving too fast and want too much at once. Black power really means race war. Dear God. How did they appeal to the fear in the modern era? Low-income blacks are violent and prone to crime. They threaten property values and must be contained or incarcerated. And here they appeal to prejudice, attaching a value or moral label to flawed but well-established perceptions. This is a marketing campaign. This is propaganda. In the colonial era, whites are physically, mentally, and more morally superior to blacks. A lie, an absolute, abhorrently vicious lie that we are now seeing exposed today. They are, in fact, not that. In the construction era, the Reconstruction era, what did they say? To appeal to the prejudice. They said that blacks want and need to be subjugated. They cannot function in free society. Listen to what they said, what the propagandists said in that era to appeal to their prejudice. Civil rights. Whites have earned economic and social privilege through hard work, discipline, high morals, and family values. The devil's a lie. You are thieving usurpers. You are invaders. And in modern era, social and economic woes are attributed solely to irresponsible black parenting, crime-coddling communities, and a sense of perceived victimization. Dear God, stereotyping, exaggerating established perceptions of physical or cultural traits, attaching negative attributes to an entire group. How did they do this in the colonial era? In the colonial era, the propagandists, the brainwashing was black slaves are uncivilized, childlike, and content with bondage. Listen to this. In the Reconstruction era, this is what they said. Emancipated blacks are buffoons, lazy, illiterate, and rapists. In the Civil Rights era, the continued propagandists said blacks are angry, impatient, and murderers. In the modern era, low-income blacks are drug-addicted, criminal, oversexed, dependent on government assistance, and irresponsible. Okay. Well, let's talk about anti-Jewish propaganda, shall we? Perhaps the only other group subjugated to such an extensive, calculated, and government-funded propaganda campaign were the Jews under the reign of Germany's leader, Adolf Hitler. In the 30s and 40s, the Fuhrers found propaganda a handy tool in spreading the dogma of Aryan superiority, that dogma you hear being spread today, achieving his military goals and justifying the mass eradication of Jews, of which no one gives an explanation on why he wanted to do. But we'll move beyond that. The Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, headed by Hitler's propagandist Joseph Goebbels, churned out posters, films, and books that spread Hitler's bile, and it was bile. Although Jews, like blacks, suffered under a deadly campaign of propaganda and brainwashing, the effort doesn't seem to have hampered their long-term cultural evolution or caused stifling psychological impairment. Jews don't rank with blacks in social and economic dysfunction. It's not that Jewish people are better or stronger than black people. The Holocaust under Hitler, as deadly and horrific as it was, lasted for about 12 years. Even by conservative standards, the Black Holocaust has a solid 250-year run. Are you listening? When examining Jewish culture, we understand that their physical and mental survival was attributed to their foundations in culture, family, and rituals. Among Jews in Egypt, Persia, Germany, Americas, and elsewhere, there's a common ritual, common belief, common values, and a common religious thread. As later chapters will illustrate, such cultural riches were stolen from blacks. Slaves and their descendants had no assumed permanent structures to maintain their cultural roots. They continuously cobbled together culture based on white dictates. Slavery, Jim Crow, and segregated society were not solid foundations. Blacks were programmatically stripped of all their cultural identity and brainwashed into a mindset of black inferiority, a double whammy that's tough to overcome. Propaganda in the modern era, branding and marketing. The principles of propaganda withstood the test of time. But the propaganda by itself is just angry, vile, vicious sentiment. Just as a car's engine works best with additional intricate parts, propaganda, coupled with other promotional tools such as marketing and branding, made the black inferiority crusade a long-lasting success. Take marketing, for example. Think of it as the commercial for profit, business end of brainwashing and propaganda. It's what all major companies use to sell products and services. Although marketing encompasses many endeavors, advertising is its most familiar form. Branding is another word with diverse meanings and nuances. Several of these apply to this book's premise, including branding a product with a trademark or branding of skin as an identifying mark. Branding also helps the consumer associate products with a widely accepted name, distinguishing it from similar products. In today's world, companies spend hundreds of millions, if not billions, to establish, promote, and protect their brands. Nike shoes, McDonald's hamburgers, Apple computers, Starbucks coffee, United Airlines Ivory soap. However, one of the first high-value brands in America was not an inanimate object, it was human. African Americans were turned into an inanimate product, slaves. And the brand that the early ruling class literally and figuratively burned onto Black Americans, as they did with livestock, was the permanent identifier of subhuman inferiority. Interesting. While some might argue that racist media practices died with Jim Crow era, a few thousand folks stranded for days on sweltering rooftops or in neck-deep toxic floodwater in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005 might disagree. We know now that many of the 24/7 news accounts of black-on-black sniper attacks, mass murders, and the rape of women and babies were largely unfounded. What influenced seasoned journalists, policemen, and emergency workers to initially sidestep humanity and propagate exaggerated accounts of Black crime? Again, media propaganda. Norman Kunz, author of The Black Experience in America, The Immigrant Heritage of America, wrote about the genesis and ultimate result of this grand scheme. Not only did white America become convinced of white superiority and Black inferiority, but it strove to impose these racial beliefs on the Africans themselves. Slave masters gave a great deal of attention to the education and training of the ideal slave. At every point, this education was built on the belief in white supremacy and Black inferiority. Besides teaching the slave to despise his own history and culture, the master strove to inculcate his own value system into the African's outlook. The white man's belief in the African's inferiority paralleled African self-hate. In short, we were brainwashed. All right, folks, I'm going to stop there. We will continue this perhaps maybe at a later date. when it's not too late, but I got things I got to do, and I'm sure that every one of you do too. Thanks so much for showing up. Did about an hour show. We do that about every day, you know, and I appreciate you being here, and thank you for lending me your ear. My name's Doug Rice. So nice, I'll say it twice, Doug Rice. And again, for those of you that want to support the effort, please use the links below to do so. Preferably Cash App. I haven't checked with Fundly in a long time, yo. And Venmo is new, so if you want to use that too. All right, folks, I got to go. 8:08. It is, and I believe before it's too late, it is Thursday, October 12th, 2023. Watch the news, folks. Don't just listen to me. Watch all of the news. Watch Eye on Television. Nice little yellow-black kind of thing going on. ION Television. These guys are on top of the whole Israeli thing. Watch all television that gives you the news, and watch, for goodness sake, for our second exit. I got to go. You guys have a wonderful day. It's been a great show. All right. Bye-bye now. What? Oh, damn it. Listen, folks. I know that I do this every day, and I know you know exactly what I'm going to say. But if I don't say it, you may forget. And I just can't allow that. No, I won't let that go. I can't. Here's the reason. If you take off the grin, if you take off the smile, and you let that seriousness hang a while, they'll show you who they truly are. And that sentiment has never been far. Now, you know, we're talking about all the things that are happening over in the Middle East, and for goodness sake, you know, the Palestinians, Israelis, well, they did displace us. Oh, I'm just kidding. Get that goddamn grin off your faces. I'll fit it in somehow. Who knows? Just go have a good